We are here today at Iron Horse, and I am standing with On the Rocks, and I'm going to show you today how to braid a horse's tail for the show braid. Some of the first things you want to make sure before you start braiding the tail is that the tail itself is washed. You want to work with clean hair. With the tail, dirty hair can be very difficult when you're trying to separate the sides to bring in each individual piece. So you want to make sure the tail itself, especially all the way down the bone, is clean and tangle free. You can even use a little bit of show sheen. You don't want to use too much because it's slippery, but you can also use a little bit of something like quick braid or hairspray and water so that you can make the hair sticky when you pull it across. This horse today, he's actually got a rawhide tail in already. So he's wearing a fake tail. You want to make sure this one is sitting nice and tight on his bone so that when we go to braid over it, you don't see a huge lump in the tailbone itself. So the tail braid itself is quite basically just a French braid all the way down the center of the tail. You want to take small pieces from the side. The tail is supposed to look dainty and elegant. If you take too large of pieces, it's a little bit distracting. So in order to start the tail braid, you want to grab, especially from the top, some horses don't have a lot of hair at the top of the tail, you want to grab a fairly decent starting piece that's pretty long and has a pretty good width to it to bring over, because it's going to be what holds your braid ultimately together. So I'm going to cross the left side with the right side as you would start a normal braid, and then I'm just going to keep incorporating pieces from this side of the tail and this side of the tail into the braid. So I'm going to come to the right side of the tail and I'm going to grab a smaller piece now. I'm going to cross it over and join it with the pieces I'm holding from the right side already. And I'm going to do the same thing the other way. So I've crossed hair from the left over, and now I'm going to add more hair to that piece and pull it tight. Not too tight, you don't want to rip it out. Back to the right, crossing it over, pulling it fairly snug. Back to the left, incorporating over. So you can see, you can start to begin to tell the braid is taking form. So you can see that I've continued pulling across hair from each side down the bone of the tail. I'm probably almost done. You want to try to get near the end of the bone of the actual tail, otherwise it doesn't quite look like it's finished from the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just continue going down, and when I get near the bone, I'm going to do my finishing braid. So there's a few different ways to finish a tail braid. The most popular ways are a wraparound or a pinwheel. I'm going to show you right now how to do a pinwheel. You can see that I have just accumulated the rest of the hair from the braid and braided down probably about 6 inches. And I'm just going to incorporate some yarn into it and tie it off. So in order to do the pinwheel and the wraparound, you're going to need to keep your pull-through handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the hair and I'm going to roll the yarn like this. Roll the braid into itself, like that. So you can see I've started a little bit of a loop. So you want to make it as tight as you can. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pull through, and the point where the yarn meets the hair, I am going to press my pull through it. So you can see that I have put the pull through up through the braid like this, where the yarn has folded over and met the hair. So I've put the yarn into the pull through, and I'm going to pull the yarn back through the tail. So I've pretty much ended with what I started. Okay, the hair on each side and the yarn in the center. I'm going to roll it again. This time I'm going to roll it a little farther because the yarn is going to meet a little higher up. So you can see the pinwheel beginning. And I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to take my yarn, or my pull through, I'm going to stick it through the braid. I'm going to pull my yarn, and I'm going to pull the yarn through again. So what this does is it just ties the pinwheel together so that it doesn't come undone. So you can see the pinwheel has started. Finally, I'm going to roll it again, this time a little further up. And you can see that the pinwheel is now meeting the tail. So I'm going to do one last pull through. I'm going to stick my pull through up through the braid like this. I'm going to hook my yarn into the pull through and pull it through again. In order to make the pinwheel sit close to the tail, we don't want it hanging off the back. What we're going to do is we're going to take our pull through and we're going to pull each side of the yarn through the pinwheel itself higher up. So you can see that I'm pulling it through a little higher up into the pinwheel, and I'll do the same thing the other way. So this way I will poke my pull through, take again from the other side, loop it into my hook, pull it through. So now my yarn is not sitting where I've pulled it through the bottom braid, but it's sitting itself up a little bit higher in the pinwheel. Now in order to attach the pinwheel to the braid, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it to the braid. I'm going to pull my pull through the actual tail braid so that I can cross this piece of yarn over. Same thing on this side, I'm going to pull it through the tail braid and grab the other piece of yarn. So basic figure eights, just pulling the hair across, pulling the yarn across. And I'm going to pull this yarn over. And I'm just going to position the pinwheel how I want it to sit. So I want it to sit nice and close to my horse's body like this. So you can see for a second here that I have these pieces of hair still sticking out. I'm going to take my yarn, crisscross it, and I'm going to fold it underneath the pinwheel. It takes a little bit of finessing. You're going to kind of have to argue with the hair just a little bit. So I have my pieces up like this now. And now is where we finish it. And we make a basic knot. And you have to be fairly precise. You want to pull it down so it's knotted. And then you want to arrange the hair so it sits well. And if the hair itself that's sticking out the side is still sticking out the side, you could even double cross it underneath the pinwheel so it sits a little bit lower. And I'm going to again make my double knot, tie it off, and knit the top. So you can see from the side, that's a nice elegant finish to the braid. You also don't want the pinwheel to be too big at the back. It's supposed to look small and pretty, so you don't want to end with too thick or long of a finishing braid. Okay, so I've tied off the braid in our 4 knot down at the bottom, so it's fairly secure. You can see that I've braided down about 10 inches, and basically the wraparound is just a wraparound. You wrap around like this, the base of the braid. So I've brought my wrap all the way around the tail, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate again the hair from the yarn like this. And then I'm going to separate the yarn in half, like this. So I had 2 pieces of yarn at the end of my braid. I've brought one around the back, one around the front, and I've knotted them underneath the wraparound. So I've put a knot in, and I'm gonna put a double knot in so it stays secure. So you can see the wraparound itself is now actually knotted into the tail, but I have a piece around the back that's sticking out. That is the remainder of the finishing braid. So I'm just gonna crisscross again. I'm gonna take my 2 pieces of yarn, and I'm going to pull it. So I've flattened the piece at the back with the yarn I've pulled around to the front, and I'm going to, again, just make another basic knot. And I'll take my scissors and nip it off. And that's what the wraparound looks like.